Well, thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for the opportunity to speak in approval of the motion made so eloquently by my fellow caucus member from Prince Albert Northcote and seconded by the member from Arm River. I will also be speaking against the amendment made by the member from Saskatoon Eastview. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this corner is full of wisdom here. There's a lot of wisdom that's provided in this area, and I'm not sure if this quote comes from the member from Regina Coronation Park or if it was from Charles Dickens, but I believe it sums up the situation that we find ourselves in dealing with COVID. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was a season of light. It was a season of darkness. It was a spring of hope. It was a winter of despair. Now, how could Dickens or the member from Regina Coronation Park have actually realized that that quote would actually be describing the worldwide pandemic of COVID-19 that we're facing? Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would like to thank the residents of Melville-Saltcoats for really showing their patience in dealing with the ever-changing developments that have been realized with COVID. The greatest majority, I believe, have shown diligence and respect and have been following the science. But I would also like to thank my constituency assistant, Rick McIntyre, who really has practiced, I believe, a tireless inflappability in providing answers, listening to the concerns, heard the stories, interpreted policy for our constituents, and all of this after seriously breaking his collarbone in April, hosting the weddings of 2 of his kids on his farm in July and August, and then dealing with some personal health issues in September and October. Like everyone in this Assembly, and I think everyone has so eloquently stated, CAs really are our rocks of support for all things happening in our constituency. Of course, our other rocks of support are our spouses, and mine, Carla, is no different, as she patiently waited as I explained our latest COVID responses to the last person in the room at every meeting or social gathering, or maybe it was at church or even at the Rider game. But she also keeps me supplied with granddaughter Bryn and Tessa pictures and videos that really reminds me of the reason that I'm here, and I believe our colleagues are here, and it's to continue to build that better life for our kids, our grandkids, our friends, and our neighbours to reside in this province. Now, I have to give 2 thumbs up to Bryn and Tessa, so they go to bed. Okay, now we've got them off to bed here. We can carry on with some of the other things that we've got to talk about tonight. Mr. Deputy Speaker, words really cannot express the gratitude and respect that I have, and I think so many of us on this side have for our Premier, our Health Ministers, and Dr. Shahab, as they've led and guided us through the most turbulent times that this province has seen in at least 100 years. They have experienced, like all of us, only magnified tenfold the overabundance of helpful guidance provided by our perpetually alarmed opposition and those that have gained their education through Dr. Google and Nurse YouTube. But I'd like to retain that optimistic point of view that Dr. Shahab often expressed to me when I was the Rural Health Minister in the role, and that was that Minister, he said, science will eventually win the day. You know, when we're done with this, science will have achieved great things. You know, in addition to that big thank you, I think we also have to put a big thanks out to our first responders, to our healthcare workers, our educators, who I don't believe ever anticipated that this would be the way that they would be going to work every day and the experiences that they've had to encounter. Mr. Speaker, to round out my list of thank yous, I'd also like to express my gratitude for the leadership that has been shown me by my Deputy Minister, Sarah Harrison. She'll be leaving us at the end of the month because I believe we've trained her well enough now for her to take on a DM role in the Government of Ontario at the end of the month. Sarah, I believe, has done an extraordinary job in really bringing the diverse portfolio, the diverse group that we have environment together, and building consensus within the ministries that we do so much work with. I like to tell people that really Sarah has taken our ministry, the Environment Ministry, from being perceived as that, you know, that tolerable ministry that we all reluctantly have to do business with, to, you know, the almost cool kids now that you maybe don't mind asking to the party. And thanks, Sarah, for your contribution to the betterment of Saskatchewan. Hear, hear. Wish you the best in Ontario. think as well our ministry has also done a tremendous job training new people to be planted throughout ministry land upstairs. I'd like to thank Alicia Bay, Mila Krumer, Aaron Metcalf and Drew Lombard, who have all done their time downstairs in our office and have now moved on to bigger and better things. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this throne speech continues to build really on this government's theme of building a better Saskatchewan. As we continue to wind through the pandemic, I think we realize that we need to plan for significant economic development and job creation opportunities to support our communities, our families, as they each build back better. In the years that the government has been on this side, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we've been building a province that is attracting major investment. I never get tired of repeating some of these new developments, $10 billion worth, I believe, that were announced in just the last few months. New potash mine, 3 new canola crush plants, further expansion in another, Canada's first wheat straw plant, a new OSB plant, revitalized pulp mill, upgraded and expanded sawmills, a new cedar assembly plant, and many others that are on the cusp of being announced. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, our ministry, the Environment Ministry, is going to be there to ensure that we have responsible resource development. The environmental assessment process identifies and characterizes the potential impacts of a project before it's carried out. We utilize a mix of technical reviews, public participation, duty to consult to inform our decision-making process. Mr. Deputy Speaker, my constituency of Melville-Saltcoats, we are also seeing significant investments being made. Yesterday, Mosaic K3 just experienced its first ore being conveyed through their new shaft and conveyance system. Nutri in Rocanville is in the middle of a significant upgrade, investing hundreds of millions of dollars and bringing in an extra 1,000 contractors to work on the project, which is expected to take over 3 years. There's a building boom in Melville, with just under $20 million being spent on a new co-op food store and a building supply centre. Kakowistahawk First Nation bought and refurbished the Babcock-Wilcox Steel Fabrication Centre, and there are a number of new businesses that are in the process of being built in and around the city of Melville. Melville-Saltcoats is poised to take advantage of a better Saskatchewan being built. One of the many disappointing things, however, that I've observed in our Leader of the Opposition, and honestly the entire Opposition, is their lack of acknowledgement for really the success of this province. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in moments of weakness, I occasionally check out social media. There has been little to no acknowledgement by any opposition member to any of the successes or developments that have been announced in this province lately. Their member from Regina University, who is also their economy and jobs critics, has not provided one note of support for any of these significant projects coming to her city, with benefits that will no doubt trickle down to her constituency and even her own business. In order to have social programs, you require an economy to support it. It is no wonder that even their members in my constituency are starting to describe them as a no-development party. Every opportunity I get, I like to remind both myself and our residents of the incredible blessings of resources that we hold in this province, and I hope you can indulge me in just as I repeat a few of them. Over 1,000 oil and gas wells were drilled in the province last year, and over 1,300 are expected to be drilled this year. Saskatchewan is the second largest oil producer in Canada and the 6th largest onshore producer in Canada and the United States. Saskatchewan is a leader in the petroleum research, especially in the areas of enhanced oil recovery and horizontal well drilling. 2 commercial EOR projects are currently underway in southeast Saskatchewan using CCS technologies. Saskatchewan is the world's leading supplier of uranium. 90% is exported, while the remaining 10% is fueling nuclear reactors in Canada. The province's uranium is responsible for powering approximately 1 in 20 homes in the United States. Saskatchewan, now a leader in helium extraction, is now officially home to the largest helium purification facility in Canada. Saskatchewan has 25 operating mines. Our mines produce potash, uranium, coal, gold, salt, metakaolin, silica sand, sodium sulfate, clay, bentonite. Saskatchewan also has a wealth of developing mineral resources, including diamonds, platinum, palladium, rare earth elements, copper, zinc, and nickel, and many more that are out there. Saskatchewan's tech sector contributes nearly $5 billion each year to the province's economy, with the Saskatchewan Growth Plan calling for the sector to triple by 2030. There are more than 5,000 technology companies in the province, according to a study by analysis company Nordicity. About 52,000 people work tech jobs in Saskatchewan. Over 31,000 are employed directly by tech companies, while the remainder work in tech jobs at other industries. Mr. Deputy Speaker, my background is agriculture. I proudly owned and operated a sizable pedigreed seed farm with my family for over 30 years in Churchbridge. During that time, we faced a lot of adversity with frost, rain, cold weather, low prices, high interest rates, the Canadian Wheat Board, and drought. 2021 will go down as a historic year where I do have to admit I said a prayer many nights for my friends and colleagues who literally bet the farm this year and every year as they put a crop in or put the cows out to pasture. I'm continually amazed by the caring and compassion that they have for their industry and for each other, helping each other wherever and whenever they possibly could. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we are a world leader in egg production, supplying what the world needs in canola, in oats, field peas, lentils, chickpeas, mustard, wheat, malt barley, livestock, fuel, and fertilizer. We are also a world leader in ag value added, and I'm astounded that almost monthly we're able to announce another company that is establishing or expanding, whether involved in value added production, machinery manufacturing, input manufacturing, or data and IT management. Mr. Deputy Speaker, forestry is another significant sector that this province is one of the best in class. Saskatchewan's forestry sector is booming, with over $1.1 billion worth of forest products sold in 2020 and almost a 30% increase over the previous year. You don't like that either. No, forestry is northern Saskatchewan's largest sector. It supports families and northern communities with 8,000 jobs. An additional 2,500 jobs are on their way to new investments announced by the forestry industry this fall. 27% of Saskatchewan's forestry sector workforce is Indigenous, and 30% of the timber supply is held by Indigenous-owned business and organizations. Both are by far the highest proportions of any province. And the NDP don't like that. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there are just a few of the numerous success stories that we have going on in this province. And it's for all of these great examples that we're going to need to continue to build our international presence. The trade offices that we've established and are establishing are going to be responsible for introducing this province to the world and the world to this province. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we have a dilemma in this province, however. The dilemma is that we may not have enough people to work in all of these sectors to supply both the labour to build, to operate and manage these facilities. So, you young folks, you got to start getting busy at building that labour force, or we're going to have to continue to attract new residents to our great province. That's an enviable position to be in, not one that many jurisdictions in North America are able to brag about today.
That's right.
Part of building a better Saskatchewan is building a safer Saskatchewan.
Here. The
changes announced in the throne speech really show a government committed to increasing its efforts in reducing crime. Creating a new protective services unit will provide a more cohesive, single-entity approach to deterring crime, especially in rural Saskatchewan. Conservation officers are going to continue to do the work that they have been commissioned for, such as environmental law enforcement, but they are also appointed to have an authority of police officers. This will provide a high degree of support to our rural residents, having an extra set of eyes and ears in our communities, making a safer environment for everyone. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I do have to express one significant concern that I have, and that is with, unfortunately, our federal government. What we have concerns about this government of Canada and its ever-changing emissions targets. What we're asking for, and what the Canadian energy industry, the mining industry, our power producers are looking for, they're looking for clarity and predictability when it comes to climate policy. We actually need a game plan here. We need to have a real dialogue with the federal government, because every month they seem to be coming up with a new target. Even now, we're getting daily reports out of COP26 with our federal leadership overpromising to everyone outside the country and failing to deliver within our confederation. This morning, they've committed $5.3 billion to help low- and middle-income nations with their emissions reduction and mitigation efforts, with up to $1 billion of that funding dedicated to helping countries transition away from coal. And they have offered what to our province? What? To transition away from coal. At the 2015 Paris meeting, Canada agreed to reduce the country's greenhouse gas emissions by 30%, below 2005 levels by 2030. In April, the feds announced a new goal of cutting emissions by 40 to 45% by 2030. Since then, Trudeau government has adopted an expanding national price on carbon and will introduce a clean fuel standard next year that could put many of our sectors dependent on hydrocarbons at a distinct economic disadvantage to their competitors. You'll have to forgive him, though, because he doesn't really think about monetary policy.
That's right.
Or he really doesn't worry about your finances, or he doesn't worry about your employer's finances. During the federal election campaign this summer, the Liberals promised to implement new regulations requiring petroleum producers to lower methane emissions by 75% below 2012 levels by the end of the decade, from a recent, previously set target of 45%. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in 2019, we introduced the oil and gas emissions management regulations, which will reduce upstream oil and gas industry emissions from venting and flaring by over 40% between 2020 and 2025. And provincial methane emissions are then capped at that level, irrespective of any potential overall growth. We've established a carbon pricing system for large industrial facilities. We will significantly reduce our emissions by 50% in our electrical generation by 2030, and subsequently implementing zero-emitting nuclear energy production by installing a fleet of small modular reactors in the early 2030s. Our ministry will have a lot more to say about that in the coming months, as our small modular reactor unit is working on a strategy to be released later this fall. Mr. Deputy Speaker, our climate change unit is supporting agriculture and forestry in their quest for finding nature-based solutions and exporting emissions reductions technologies through zero-till ag equipment. Just recently, our government announced our carbon capture, storage and utilization strategy to support our oil and gas sector in becoming even better in their world-leading ability to reduce their emissions intensity. Again, our ask of our federal government is, what are you doing to assist us in our transition to a lower carbon-intense economy? A good start would maybe be to respond to our ask for financial support of small modular reactors, which will provide long-term, sustainable, emissions-free baseload power. Even prominent Liberal insider Mark Carney was quoted at COP26 saying he has never observed a credible energy transition strategy that does not include nuclear. We need our federal government to start making financial commitments at home to support innovation and ingenuity in our backyard before supporting our global competitors. Mr. Speaker, I think I'm winding down. Like so many others before me, I would like to acknowledge the contributions of our veterans. My grandfather was a cavalry member who fought in World War I. That certainly ages me. I have friends and associates who continue to serve in the reserves, and I hear of the hardships and the misery that conflict brings. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would encourage everyone that has the opportunity to have a conversation with a First Nations and Métis veteran. Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, I am in awe of the loyalty and honour that they have in defending their country and the Queen. This is something that we can certainly build reconciliation on, lest we forget. Mr. Deputy Speaker, my sincere hope is that we are just about through this pandemic. My hope is that we as a province will be able to focus soon on the positive developments that are evolving on an almost daily basis in this province. My hope is that we will all spend our future time in a positive way to improve the life for all the residents of our great province. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'd like to conclude by repeating what our provincial motto speaks to: in many people's strength. God bless our people, God bless our province, and God bless our country. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.